Hello everybody, welcome to the Children's Liturgy of the Word. Today is the Feast of Christ the King. I am Jennifer O'Leary and this is for the children at St. Elizabeth Ann SetonParish in Crofton, Maryland. We are so glad you're here. If you are back with us, thank you. We're so glad to see you again. And if you're new, we're so glad you're here. Welcome. Friends, this is starting one of my favorite times of the year. We're going to celebrate Christ the King today, and then in the next 4 weeks, we're going to celebrate Advent, which is a season of waiting for Jesus to come for Christmas. So let's start with Beauty and the Beast. Some of you may have seen that movie before, maybe you haven't, but you might know the story. Beauty and the Beast is a great little story, fairy tale about Belle, who is Beauty, and she has to go live with the Beast, right? And if you've seen the Disney version, he's a beast, right? And he has to almost convince her to fall in love with him so that he can turn back into a prince, right? So I want you to think about in that movie how Belle treats the Beast. She's kind of scared of him at first, right? Which is normal. If you saw a beast, you'd be a little bit afraid. Or maybe not. Maybe you'd be super brave. But anyway, let's pretend you'd be kind of scared of the Beast. And she does not know that he was once a prince, right? She just knows that he's this beast and he's not always very nice. And like I said, at first she's scared, but as she goes through time and spends time with him, she comes to enjoy her time with him, and she treats him really kindly. She teaches him about different books and reading. She teaches him about when they're eating at the table, right? She kind of teaches him manners, but he's also kinder to her. Anyway, my point is, at the end of the movie, spoiler alert, he turns back into a prince. But the whole time that she had this relationship with him leading up to that, she did not know that he was a prince, did she? I want you to kind of keep that story in the back of your mind today as we listen to the gospel, all right? Okay, let's play a little game. You're going to have to give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I'm going to say some different things that could happen, and I want you to tell me if it's generous, if it's something that's good and nice, or if it's not so generous, if it's not such a kind thing. Okay, sharing a snack with somebody who's hungry, like your friend who forgot their snack. Is that generous or not? It's tricky because at school you're probably not supposed to share your snacks, right? But it's a generous thing to do. Let's see. Giving some of your old clothes away, like we donate our clothes, right? Like to a Goodwill or to have like the veterans come and pick ours up, right? Is that generous or no? I'd say it's generous, yeah. How about if you know somebody's sad and you ignore it? You're like, oh, I'm going to leave them alone. Yeah, it's probably not very generous. You kind of want to, when somebody's sad, you want to ask them if they need some help, right? How about visiting someone who's sick? Trick question, because right now we can't really do that. Let's pretend it's normal times, okay? Visiting a relative who's sick. I would say that's generous. Right now, it wouldn't even necessarily have to be visiting. You could probably, if someone was sick, you'd want to send them a card or make treats for them or something like that, right? All right. Walking past somebody who's dropped all their stuff, like their books or their groceries or something, if you just walk past them, is that generous or no? No. Like you're like, oh, I've got to get somewhere, and you run past them. Not so nice. How about when somebody's new, like at school or at church, if you say hello to them, if you say, hi, how you doing? Generous. That's very nice. That's very kind of you. How about when you're done with a snack and you have some trash and you just drop it on the ground? Nope. Not so much. So we want to make sure that we use loving and generous actions, and sometimes that's easy and sometimes that's hard. In today's gospel, Jesus tells a story And he talks about how shepherds keep their sheep and their goats apart, right? They don't want the goats to hurt the sheep. They don't want the sheep to be in trouble with the goats. They keep them separate. So Jesus is going to tell this story, and he's going to say, no words. Well, there were some loving and generous actions in there, right? We want to make sure that we use those loving and generous actions. And we don't want to do the things that aren't so loving and generous, right? If you see trash, you want to pick it up. If you see somebody who needs to be welcomed somewhere and needs a friend, you want to be their friend. Sometimes these things sound really easy, and then sometimes you're in the moment and it's a little bit hard. In today's gospel, people get up to heaven and they're confronted with the fact, somebody talks to them about the fact that they did a really great job of taking care of other people. And Jesus says to them, when you took care of me, when I was sick, and you gave me clothing when I didn't have clothes. He says naked, don't worry, it's not silly. He says, when I didn't have enough clothes, you gave me clothes. And the people are like, what are you talking about? We never met you, Jesus. We don't know what you mean. But he says, when you did it to the least of my people, when you did it to people that you didn't even know, then you were doing it for me. And then there's another group of people, and he says, hey, you didn't feed me when I was hungry. You didn't bring me water when I was thirsty. And they're like, we never met you, Jesus. We don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, yeah, but when you did that to other people, you were doing that to me. It's a little tricky. We'll talk about it after. Let me read you the gospel. Remember, I'm going to talk about, at the very beginning, I say the gospel according to Matthew. And when the priest or the deacon says that, when they say, this is a gospel according to Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, you're going to say, glory to you, O Lord. And you cross your forehead and your lips and your heart. And you do that because you want to keep these words in your brain. You want to remember them. And you want to use the words when you need to and say them. And you want to have these words in your heart. So here we go. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Glory to you, O Lord. Jesus said to his disciples, when the Son of Man comes in his glory with all his angels, he will sit on his royal throne. The people of all nations will be brought before him, and he will separate them as shepherds separate their sheep from their goats. He will place the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, my Father has blessed you. Come and receive the kingdom that was prepared for you before the world was created. When I was hungry, you gave me something to eat. When I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I was a stranger, you welcomed me. When I was naked, you gave me clothes to wear. When I was sick, you took care of me. And when I was in jail, you visited me. Then the ones who pleased the Lord will ask, when did we give you something to eat or drink? When did we welcome you as a stranger or give you clothes to wear or visit you while you were sick or in jail? The king will answer, whenever you did it for any of my people, no matter how unimportant they seemed, you did it for me. Then the king will say to those on his left, get away from me. You are under God's curse. Go into the everlasting fire prepared for the devil and all his angels. I was hungry, but you did not give me anything to eat. And I was thirsty, but you did not give me anything to drink. I was a stranger, but you did not welcome me. And I was naked, but you did not give me any clothes to wear. I was sick and in jail, but you did not take care of me. Then the people will ask, Lord, when did we fail to help you when you were hungry or thirsty or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in jail. And the king will say to them, whenever you failed to help any of my people, no matter how unimportant they seemed, you failed to do it for me. And then Jesus said, those people will be punished forever, but the ones who pleased God will have eternal life. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. There's a lot to unpack in that gospel. And since you are children and I'm a grown-up who only knows some things, I'm going to unpack one little part of it. And that is the part where Jesus says, you need to feed the hungry and give the thirsty something to drink. These are the ways you should live. I'm actually going to go through the different things and give you some ideas of things that you can do to really live out your faith. And some of them you might need some help from a grown-up, but some of them are things you can probably do on your own. So let's start with the first thing he said. He said, when I was hungry, you gave me something to eat. You know what it's like when you're super hungry and then one of your grown-ups like makes lunch for you or makes dinner and you're like, oh, thank goodness, I feel so much better, right? So there are ways that we can give that relief to other people. The first thing that I'm going to tell you is I think this one's super easy, and if it's not something your family already does, now's a great time to start. At St. Elizabeth Ann Seton, there is a food pantry, and you can bring all kinds of unperishable foods. That means foods that don't need a refrigerator. And then people who might need a little bit of help can go and get food there. That might mean that you go through your pantry and find some things you're not using and you take them in, like soup or mac and cheese or spaghetti, something like that. It could be that you, when you're at the grocery store next or when a grown-up goes, you say, hey, could we get an extra box of cereal and take it into the food pantry? One of the other things you can do to feed the hungry is, like, maybe you have a neighbor who has a new baby, and when someone has a new baby, they have a lot going on. And so maybe you make them a meal, or you take over some cookies, or you make muffins, right? It could be that to feed the hungry, you offer to help the grown-ups in your house make dinner. You say, how about I help out tonight? One more crazy idea. Maybe your family takes a week and you don't eat out for one night, or you make sure you have just things like rice and beans, and the money that you save from not eating like you normally do, you use that to donate to somebody who needs food. Again, like the food pantry or a homeless shelter, something like that. Our family has talked about this one, but we haven't actually done it yet. Maybe now's the time. Anyway, let's move on. Next, Jesus says, when I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. And these people are like, I didn't see you, Jesus. What are you talking about? So whenever we have people who come and do work at our house, outside usually, like the people who spray for mosquitoes, or if we have people who come lay down mulch, or if somebody's digging, like cutting down a tree, something like that. Anybody who comes and does work, we try to give them water. We try to bring out water for them because they're doing hard work and your body needs water. Or this is the time of year where we get a lot of packages at our house. And so we always make sure that we leave out little water bottles for the delivery people who are dropping things off. And we put out a little sign. Maybe you could make a wonderful little sign that says, take one of these, and you could put out little snacks and drinks. This time of year gets colder, but you could also do like a lemonade stand in the summer and use the money to give towards a charity of your choice. Then you're feeding the you're feeding the thirsty. You're giving them drink. It really takes thinking about who might need a drink and how you could get it to them, okay? Next, Jesus says, when I was a stranger, you welcomed me. This one's kind of easy for me at times, but I'm going to give you a couple of ideas. This one requires looking and paying attention to people and really trying to hone in on how you think they feel. I say it's easy because at times it is. When I was growing up, I moved several times. And I can tell you every single time who it was that invited me to eat lunch with them. No kidding. The very first time I moved, I was going into 7th grade, and I was so scared I would have no one to sit with at lunch, and I didn't know anybody, and we switched all the classes, right? I get to my language arts class. I was in 7th grade. This was a long time ago. Get to my language arts class, and Lauren Hatfield was sitting in front of me, and she turned around and she said, "You're new here, aren't you?" I said, "Yes, I am." And she goes, "Well, you want to sit with us at lunch?" And I said, "Yes, I do." Isn't that amazing? I haven't seen Lauren Hatfield in years. Not since I was in 8th grade. Anyway, it can be as simple as inviting someone to sit with you. It could be that you are out in the neighborhood and you notice one of the kids doesn't usually come out. It could be that they just want some time to themselves, but it's really important that you make sure you invite them and include them. You say, "Hey, we'd really love you to come out and play with us when you're ready." Maybe you have a sibling who gets left out of things, and you make sure that you have them, you'd play something that they would like to do. It also means that when you're someplace like at church, when we get back and we're in person, and it will happen, we're going to have children's liturgy of the word eventually. And when we go, if you look around and you see a friend you know, you're going to be like, "Oh, let's sit together." And then I want you to look around and see if there's anybody who looks scared or lost or like they just need a friend. And I want you to say, "Hey, would you like to come sit with us?" It makes a big difference. Okay, the next one is clothe the naked. I know naked can be kind of a funny word, and we're not talking about when you're actually naked, but we just mean people need to wear clothes, right? One of the things we do to clothe the naked in our house is we go through all our clothes and we donate anything that doesn't fit. I bet your family does this. Or even if you take a bag of your clothes that don't fit you anymore and give them to another family who might need them. Thank you very much. Sometimes that's us. It could also mean something like doing the laundry for your family. In our house, there's a lot of laundry. And so it might mean that you help sort the laundry, or bring the dirty laundry to the laundry room, or fold the clothes, or put them away. That's helping clothe the naked. I got one more idea for you on this one. If you have a younger sibling, if you have a kid in your house younger than you, you could help them get dressed. So there's a lot of different ways to clothe the naked. The next thing Jesus talked about was taking care of the sick. This is a little bit harder right now because we're in the middle of a global pandemic. If this were normal times, it would be important to go visit people who are sick, and maybe you bring them some soup, or maybe you just bring them yourself where you visit with them. Right now is a really hard time to do this, but you could still do things like send pictures or send a card. This might be as simple as if you have someone in your family who lives in like a facility for elderly people, you could help make appointments for them or call and check in and make sure they're doing okay. Okay, last one is about visiting people who are in jail. Some of you might know somebody who's in jail, and some of you might not. We're going to take this and we're going to make it even bigger. If you've ever known somebody in jail, it might be that you've gone to visit them, but usually that's something that grown-ups do. If you have known somebody in jail, you've probably been able to send them letters or pictures. But if you've never known anybody in jail, you've probably still known somebody who was lonely. In fact, in this time, there are a lot of people who are very lonely. Right now is a time where people are sort of trapped. They're sort of stuck at home. We don't get to do the things we normally do. So I'm going to give an example, and I hope I'm not calling him out too much. Think for a minute about Father Paul. Father Paul lives all by himself in the rectory, and he might get to see people at Mass, but remember, he's got to stay 6 feet away from people and wear masks. And you probably live in a house with your family, and there's probably more than just you by yourself. So imagine how Father Paul must feel. He might get pretty lonely. I know in our house, we don't get lonely very often. We have 6 people running around, having a good time. There's usually somebody to play with. It's loud and crazy, but usually we're not very lonely. So Father Paul is just an example that I can use because he's somebody we all know. But I bet you can think of people you know or people that you've met that maybe might be lonely right now. And they're in a sort of jail. They're not in real jail, but they're in a place in their hearts where they might be lonely. This is a great time to call them, to do a Zoom chat with them or FaceTime. It's a great time to send them letters or draw pictures. Now is the time to check in on those people who you think just might be a little lonely. Okay, so those are the things that Jesus talked about today. And he said, when you do them for anybody else, you're doing them for me. Because maybe you've learned this before. Jesus, God, the Spirit, are in every single person you meet. Every single person who has ever lived. That's like meeting Jesus. So I want you to really think about these things we talked about and think about what you can do. Again, you might need some help from a grown-up, but there might be some things you can do on your own. Make sure you get permission from a grown-up in your house though, all right? I don't want to get in trouble. All right, Advent starts next week, and like I said before, it's one of my favorite times of the whole year. It's a great time to get your heart ready for Jesus coming. It's a time for us to be in stillness, for a time for us to wait. So if I don't see you again, I hope you have a fantastic Advent and a great Christmas season and a great Thanksgiving. It's probably going to look a little different this year, but there are so many things to be thankful for. I personally am thankful for you watching these videos, because I take some time to make them, and I'm so grateful that you are watching them. So thank you so much. Thank you. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next time.